we, on the side of the proposition, want innovation. We want a cure for cancer, we want a cure for AIDS, we want flying cars, and so on. But we are not ready to forego important skills such as morality and social awareness to get to those innovations. I will do three things in my speech. First of all, I will provide a definition, then I will characterize this debate, and thirdly and lastly, I will provide two arguments. So let's go to the definition. We define STEM as all sciences such as chemistry, physics, biology, technology such as computer science, robotics, engineering, and mathematics. From STEM, we do not include we don't include humanities such as politics, history, philosophy. We also don't include arts, communication, and languages, and so on. So we see that the focus on STEM education has increased since the 1960s. Recently since the 1960s, so far that STEM is now 5 times bigger than it used to be. This has gone so far that in our school we have 5 hours of maths per week and no art, no music, no philosophy, no politics. We do not want such a status quo where STEM receives more funding and has more teachers. And for example, in Scotland in 2018, teachers received bursaries of £20,000 if they chose to go to STEM. We see that STEM is, there's an increased focus on STEM at all levels of education, and therefore more people pursue STEM related subjects. In our status quo, we want a holistic approach to education. We do not want any subject group to be prioritized, but we see that we cannot get a balanced education if we have an increased focus on STEM education. We want the best of both worlds, where we get both STEM and the others, non-STEM. So let's go to the argument. I'll be having 2 arguments, and these are the societal importance of non-STEM education, and the second one is non-STEM importance for innovation, and the third argument, which is the nature of work, will be presented by our third speaker. So let's go to the first argument about the societal importance of non-STEM education. So I'll be having 2 points here. The first one is that it provides important skills, and the second one, that more people pursue non-STEM degrees. So let's go to the first point about the skills that we acquire. So we see that through STEM, through non-STEM, which I've already said encompasses history, philosophy, politics, and art, and so on, we get 2 important skills that we do not gain with STEM. These are complex morality and social criticism. We see that, first of all, with morality we see 2 approaches. The first one is a direct approach through philosophy, by reading works such as Kant and interpreting them, and so on. And we also have an indirect approach by analyzing historical events, analyzing literature such as Crime and Punishment, and so on. And for those, we have to understand and interpret that literature, and we gain along the way we gain the morality. We believe that this is important because this provides complex morality that is non-intuitive. This provides morality about the questions such as burqas in secular schools, such as abortion, such as refugees, which isn't intuitive to us, and we believe that this is why it's important. The second thing that we gain is social criticism. We gain this for 2 reasons. The first one is that people are taught social criticism directly from theory, such as in politics, philosophy, and so on, and they also gain it indirectly from interpreting art pieces, literature such as Orwell, music such as rap, punk, and so on. But we also get social criticism because if there's a balanced education, there are more people in non-STEM, and they produce more non-STEM related material, which is more socially critical. So this is the second point, that there are more people in non-STEM. So we see that if there's a balanced focus, then we have more non-STEM education than we currently have. And more people have contact with non-STEM education, and more people can have contact with subjects that they have never encountered before, such as politics, philosophy, and so on. What we see here that those subjects can entice people, and then they can pursue those later on in life. We see this, that this is important because those skills that I have said of social criticism and morality have to be learned because they aren't intuitive. They're important so people are more equipped to fight injustice, to fight populism, authoritarianism, and so on. They have to be equipped to fight complex social issues that the non-STEM battles, and they have to participate in democracy and be a part of society. And these skills provide them with the knowledge of the importance of voting, bigotry, and so on. Let's go to the second argument about the non-STEM importance for innovation. So we see that with non-STEM, we get innovation that is better. We say this for two reasons. The first one is that it encompasses different mindsets, and the second reason is about the societal implications of these inventions. We see that with STEM, we have a problem and a solution, and we have a narrow systematic approach from which we get from an exact process to an exact solutions. For example, using the quadratic formula in a math problem to solve that math problem. Yes, sure.
Don't you agree that with STEM, with those specific formulas, you also learn how to apply problem-solving skills, for example? This is also very important for innovation.
Yes, okay, this is what I'm talking about right now. No, we do not think, because it's still an exact process, mind process, from which you get the problem to a solution. And with non-STEM, we have a wider approach where there are different ways of thinking, different ways of thinking, different ways of interpreting certain art pieces, certain literature, philosophical thought, and so on. So we see that there are different mindsets that we gain with non-STEM education. Yes.
Don't you agree that you need an exact mindset to get to these innovations instead of just thinking about the solutions like you do in philosophy?
Yes. Okay. So as I said, we see that for innovation, it's good that we have different mindsets, different perspectives, because we look at the same problem from different perspectives, and therefore the innovation is more efficient because we take different circumstances into mind when we're solving these problems. So the second point of my argument is about the societal implications of these inventions. So we see that with non-STEM, as I said, we gain social awareness, criticism, morality, and so on. So I have provided this analysis in my first argument. And we believe that these are very important in inventions, because if the inventors have these, they take into account societal importance when they are making inventions. They take into account the effect on society, the effect on politics, the effect on the economy, and so on. They do not purely look at the problem and the solution, but they take the effects into account when they are making those inventions. An example of this is a Chinese doctor who genetically engineered a baby without the mother's approval, and we see that if he were taught more morals, he'd see that that is deeply immoral, that it's not good to do this only in the name of science, because there are different important things such as morals, social awareness, and so on. We see that with this, morality is a factor in innovation, and with this we get better innovation. But if we only have a scientific approach, we do not get this. If we only have a scientific approach, we do not see what the effect on society is, and we do not see what actually society needs. This is an example of Elon Musk sending a car into space when he could have used that money in way better ways. For all of these reasons, I urge you to vote for the proposition.
Let's take a look at how it is exactly balanced between subjects. Let's take a look at how humanities have been prioritized for years, and only in recent years has come an actual equality between subjects. Subjects like math, like science, have always been considered for only the smartest of the smartest, for only those people. But in recent years, and everyone did humanities, but in recent years, because of the increase of focus on STEM education, people have seen the importance of everyone learning those skills, and actually have brought more equality between what kind of subjects we learn. So we see that on our side so in the status quo, we see that there actually is more equality between subjects, and that proposition is stands for a balance between STEM on a very low point and humanities on a high point. And in order to win this debate, they have to prove why that balance is okay. In my speech, I will first be giving some extra definition and framing of the motion. Then I will be giving an argument about job prospects and an argument on gender equality. Our second speaker will talk about helping minorities, and I will also give some quick rebuttal to the case of the proposition. First, some more definitions. some extra definitions. We also define the focus as that subjects like maths are made mandatory in schools such as high school. Secondly, we also think that focus on STEM means marketing for STEM, specifically such as Science for Women Days, because we've not seen any of this in the status quo. Then, onto a quick rebuttal. First, their argument about importance of non-STEM. First, they've said that that in humanities you learn important skills such as morality. Two responses. First, we don't see how repeating and studying information like you do in history or geography causes skills such as morality. We see that this is more implemented in real life or in raising. Then secondly, we think that even if you learn those skills in humanities subjects, we still think that it takes way less time to actually study these. So we still think that you shouldn't spend even more time on these subjects because you also learn them outside of school. Then their second point in this argument that there will be more people in non-STEM. We already see a lot of people in non-STEM. We already see a lot of historians and philosophers. Secondly, we think that, same response as before, we see that there's still, that you can also learn these skills outside of school. Their second argument about non-STEM importance for innovation. They've talked about different mindsets because without an exact process you can't come to a solution. In my POI, I've already stated that for innovations like the cure to cancer, you need an exact mindset. Because in subjects like history, you're not actually solving a problem, you're thinking about a problem and how maybe to solve it, because there's no exact answer. This is not true for example, cure for cancer. Then they've talked about you have more perspectives and you have more perspectives. As perspectives, we've already stated we stand for more equality, so we think that on our side of the house you also have these perspectives. Then about societal importance, again, we stand for equality and we also see these skills outside of school. Then onto our first argument about maximizing job prospects. We see, first we see that proposition has also agreed to this, you have more students studying STEM. Then, secondly, why do people who study STEM find a job more easily? Two reasons for this. First, you see a shortage in personnel. You see a shortage in the personnel in STEM branches in the status quo. 40% of US companies could not hire because of a shortage in STEM graduates. But this number would have been way higher if we would not have already been equalizing these subjects. Then, secondly, we see that the STEM market is the fastest growing market right now. Companies such as Apple, such as Google, are growing every single day. This means that there are going to be existing even more jobs in this field, so even more opportunities for those graduates to find them, to have a job. Then, even if the need decreases for STEM graduates or people do something else, we still see that STEM makes it easy enough to switch jobs or to find another study and still implement those STEM skills. First, I'll take you a minute, we see that you get a problem-solving mindset from STEM. Why? Because you're constantly faced with problems. This means you get used to it, and instead of seeing it as an obstacle, you see it as a challenge. And because of that, you'll be more used to solving problems. Second, then we see that this is also exclusive to STEM. As I've already explained, in humanities, there's no definite answer, so you only eventually think about it. Then you see that STEM also teaches you to work neatly. Otherwise, you'll get discredited, or you'll make mistakes. Because of that, you write everything more clear, and this can also help in every single work field. Then you also see that you get specific logical reasoning because of using formulas. You see how different variables interact, which teaches you an analytical mindset. So it's important that that people can find a job, and that people can find a job more easily, Because we think, firstly, we think that it's good that people can find a job more easily, so they have money, so they can afford a house. Secondly, we also think that it's so important to still teach these skills and still learn these skills that you learn exclusively in STEM, have trouble learning in outside of school. So because of that, we think that it's good to have this equal attention to STEM. First, if your POI is still
It's relates a bit to the older point, but how do you say that it's easier to find a non-STEM job before you only have STEM education? If wouldn't it be more reasonable to have education in all of the fields?
Okay, please sit down. I've already explained in STEM you learn specific skills that you can still implement in these jobs. You see it very handy for these jobs. These skills you don't get taught outside of school. Then onto my second argument: why will more women get into STEM? So why don't get women into STEM? First, we see that there are two reasons for this. First, we see that they are extremely discouraged because people believe that STEM is not something for women. Secondly, we also think that they're discouraged because of the marketing. Boys get a science kit, women get Barbies. Secondly, we think that there are no female role models for these girls to even consider going into STEM because they have no one to look up to, because these role models are completely erased by history. Then, so they don't eventually get into STEM because they don't believe it's something for them or just are discouraged to do so. So why do we solve this? First, we see that they have to put time into this, so they have to come in contact, so they do actually do STEM. Secondly, we think that because you do STEM more, you get better at it. So, and we think that once you're good at a subject, you'll like it more. Then thirdly, we see that because we define the focus as also marketing, specifically towards women, you still see that they're also encouraged more. Then why it's important to get women in STEM? It's fairer, and we think that it also makes them depend less on men, because in STEM jobs you make more money. Because we stand for equality, we stand for gender equality, and we think these skills are so incredibly important. Please vote opposition.
We don't want to live in a world where we're too busy asking the question, can it be done, that we don't ask ourselves the question, should it be done? We are proud to present on the side of opposition on the side of proposition that we believe that STEM outweighing other subjects in schools is wrong, right? So first let's go on the status quo and actually look at what the status quo looks like, because they have tried to spin it as if now we're getting equality. What we've shown in our first speech is that this is simply not what's the case. Simply, in the past 10 to 15 years, most of the non-STEM and humanistic subjects have been completely removed, or at least to a large extent removed from the subject, so you can have more maths, more physics, more chemistry, and more biology, right? What we tell you is that this is deeply the problem here. It is not a problem now we get from zero STEM to equal STEM, but we get from somewhat equal STEM to almost exclusive STEM, right? And that is where we draw the line. If we stated in our mechanism, no thank you, that we believe that in a holistic approach, in an approach where every subject is treated equally, and physics are not treated more importantly than philosophy, that history is treated equally as physics, that is what we want, right? So onto what I'll present in my speech. First, I go over our arguments, tell why they still stand, go on to their two arguments of jobs and gender equality, and thirdly go on to the final substantive of what is the actual nature of work today, which directly clashes with that second argument. So on to our case. Firstly, about complex moralities, they stated that these complex moralities, they're taught. They don't see the connection between studying them in school and learning about them. But what we tell you is that these moralities are not intuitive. While we all can intuitively tell that harming another person is bad, while we can all intuitively tell that stealing is bad in a moment, we cannot all agree on other moral values, abortion, refugees, and that is why we need in schools to be taught these complex moralities. And I'll elaborate more on why we get that after the POI.
When you name the example of Elon Musk shooting a car into the space, don't you think that he has discussed this with people with non-STEM background, and therefore an entire point that he wouldn't have done it with STEM background, a non-STEM background doesn't stand?
Would you repeat that?
Don't you think that Elon Musk has discussed this shooting a car into the space with people with non-STEM
Yeah,
backgrounds?
absolutely, he probably has. But I'm telling you, if he wasn't taught what humanity needs, if he himself wasn't truly exposed through his development in in non-STEM subjects, we believe that that is the problem here, right? No, thank you. So on to how do we actually get that? For the side of proposition has actually said that they don't see it. Well, we told you that when you read and when you read some philosopher, and then you need to analyze them, and you need to think about it, and you need to write an essay about it. That's when you start thinking about moralities. That's when you start discussing them, and that's how we get it. Same goes for social criticism. Where they say that there already are these people that are socially aware, but what I tell you is it's so vital that people in high school, elementary school, read, for example, 1984 and learn how it looked like and how to see these problems. It's important that they see how fascist governments came into power and so on, so they can see the problems in society, right? And this is what we're telling you. And this is exactly important so people can see these problems in our society. Secondly, about better innovation, quickly, because I see that I'm really clear. Better innovation comes from the fact that we have, no thank you, different mindsets. We're not saying that only logic, we're not saying that logic itself is not good. What we're telling you is that logic itself is not enough. You need to be able to think complexly. You need to think in abstract terms, something that physics do not, for example, teach. No thank you. You need to be able to think, you need to be creative, think, and so on. This is what our point was, and they completely didn't tackle that. So on to their arguments of, firstly, more jobs. What we tell you is that, what I'm speaking more in my argument, that we very much do not know what jobs in 10 years will be. But what we can tell you is that a lot of jobs require way more than they require STEM. Other habits and other knowledges from fields such as non-STEM, no thank you. And this is what I'll prove more in my argument. On the second argument about more equality for women, what we tell you is that on our side we completely support encouraging women to go into STEM. What we don't support, again, is the idea that women, that we start increasing the focus on, STEM education, starting to put more and more hours of STEM into our work, putting more money into STEM, but you disagree.
About your first point, about your point that schools need to teach about abortion, don't you think that that's not the job of school to teach you how to think on those things, because that directly violates the principle of free speech?
I do not see how this in any way even relates to the freedom of free speech. I do not see how being taught about morality is how to think in the terms of good and bad in complex examples like this can even possibly touch on the idea of free speech, right? I do not see any connection there. So onto the women quickly. No, thank you. On the women, what we tell you here is that we agree that we need to encourage women. We need to do that. But we disagree when we start pushing the extra hours in. When we start pushing the additional hour, right? And what we see is that if we say that women should go into STEM, we don't see that as really the increase of STEM. What we see the problem is when you everywhere you're surrounded with, you're just blast, go into STEM, that's when you have the problem, right? We are completely agree that we should find that. So on to our final argument of what is actually the nature of work and directly the negation of their first argument. So 300 years ago, you exactly knew what jobs would be in 10 years, right? You exactly knew that in 10 years, if you are a blacksmith, you'll be a blacksmith and be doing pretty much the same thing as you're doing now. But what we tell you is today, this has drastically changed. Today we have a way faster development of work. Today, what we have is work that changes from day to day, from night to night. And what we have is work that cannot be prepared for in school. Well, it is very much difficult to know in 10 years what it will be. And even further, when you have a job already, you still are not sure what will be in 1 year, how your position will change, right? Especially the field of STEM, which they're so perpetuating, is changing rapidly. So what are the actual things that need to be taught for this to work? What actually needs to be taught are two things in our, we believe. Flexibility and the ability to communicate well. Flexibility, firstly, as I stated, the things are changing fast, and you need to be able to adapt to the new situations to be able to be employable. And you only get that if you have different mindsets, if you're not only always taught how to think in math and physics terms, but you're also taught how to communicate with people that are more of artistic nature, how to express your ideas more openly. And this is, again, to the communications point. they throughout were running of how this is. How do we have these subjects are easy and they can be learned, but math is hard. But what we tell you is they and us and all of you have been really for a long time debating to be able to be here, right? What we tell you is this is not an easy thing to learn. You cannot learn in a few days. This is why it's so important that we teach it in schools, that we teach things like that, like history and philosophy and art, where you communicate and express your ideas to be able to do that. So what have we shown you? Firstly, we've shown you how our still analysis of complex morality and better innovation still stands. Secondly, we showed you how these jobs, require it, and thirdly, we showed you how their side is trying to present something.
Right now, what proposition is trying to claim is that everybody who follows STEM doesn't have the right amount of brain cells to actually make a life decision about what they think is their own moral and what they think is important. They are trying to tell that morality should be taught when in fact moralities are subjective and everybody gets their own through their life on, through their raising, through their education, but not only this education but also by life experiences. First, I'd like to do some rebuttal to the arguments given by the proposition, and after that I'd like to extend our second argument given by the first speaker about feminism and why it's important that more women get into STEM. After this, I would like to give the argument of my own speech about why it's so important to have STEM, because it's actually encouraging minorities to get into better colleges. Now first, on to the rebuttal on the arguments given by the proposition. As to moralities, I've already stated, they said morality should be taught about certain subjects such as abortions. Yet, this is something that you actually form an opinion of through life. You actually start to find out what your own thing that you think is important. Nobody actually keeps on thinking in the system that is being taught in a school. Everybody develops their own certain mindset, and therefore these views can still be changed, and it shouldn't be exactly taught in school, because when you're only taught one view, you are actually being harmed and forced to think in one way instead of what they're stating. Now, they also said, well, more jobs is actually something that's very important, as with STEM there won't be any more jobs. This is not true. Now, why is it not true? Because I have 3 points for this. First, there is no abundance of people in STEM, because these people can work in all areas. Now, why is they can work in all areas, you may ask? Because of the skills you are being learned in STEM. You're being learned critical thinking, but also creative ways to search for solutions. Every single person who's hiring actually wants this, and there's a very high demand for people who work in STEM. The second one is the technological advancement. They may say that, well, because there are being more robots, there are actually fewer jobs. This is not true, because since the invention of the computer, there are actually 18 million jobs created in the USA alone, where there are jobs with technology, so therefore their argument does not stand and doesn't have any impact at all. The third point is that even if there is abundance, there is still no shortage of unemployment, because these people can start their own companies. Now, why can they start their own companies? First, if they don't have a lot of money, they can start a company in coding. Therefore, you can have your own company from the couch, and you can actually learn a lot of money, so you're not employed. Second one is that with STEM, you also learn a lot of creative ways to think about you. I'll take you in a minute. You learn a lot of creative ways to think, to search problems and to attack them from multiple ways. Therefore, you can start thinking creatively and actually start your own product, which a lot of STEM graduates do. Yes.
And you can start your own company in non-STEM, like political consulting, economic consulting, and similar.
Oh, we do not deny the fact, and that is why we actually are on the right side of the house, because with this increasing focus in STEM, there's going to be a balanced system, and therefore people from all sorts can start their own companies. Yet, with engineering, something that is specifically taught in STEM education, you are actually being more innovative. You are learning how to create new products to put on the market, and therefore these people have a bigger chance of starting their own job because they create their own products. Now, on to the second thing, about the skills that you learn in non-STEM. Well, this is not true, because they're not only taught in non-STEM. Now, why is it? 2 things. First of all, STEM isn't just formulas as something that the proposition would like you to believe. Now, why is it? There are also a lot of soft skills. Because of these things, you have to learn and think creative about multiple problems, but also you have to communicate a lot in these certain subjects. Now, why is it? Because most of the time you're actually doing research. You have to look a lot into things and actually get a lot of information about certain subjects. But you also have to communicate this research right. This is why you often have in STEM subjects actual presentations where you communicate your research, and therefore also learning these skills in STEM itself. The second is that STEM is actually a combination of both worlds. Why? Because it's a combination of abstract and theoretical education, but also it has a relation to the reality. Now, why is it? Let me give you an example. For example, in chemistry itself, you actually are doing a lot of research, but you're also showing people what you have done. Therefore, you give these presentations again, where you also develop these communication skills. No, thank you. And you actually are developing these skills as well. Now, so STEM also has the skills that are being taught in non-STEM, so we do not see why it's exclusively to that side of the house. Now, on to extending the second argument given by our first speaker about the feminism. Why it's so important that more people get into STEM education. First of all, I'd like to point out that in the last 5 years, with this increasing focus in STEM, 12% more women have actually joined STEM colleges, have found a job in STEM. Now, why is this so important? Because there's this old thought running in a society where women can't do this. They are not able to do this. Why? Because men can do it better. This is something we need to tackle because we are an innovative society. And we do this by increasing this focus, by making these women get in touch with these subjects and actually learning, understanding them, and actually get more motivated, which is why they will pursue a career in this. Now, why is it so important? Because it teaches young women that they can do anything, even these subjects that are mostly marketed through men, but also because it teaches women that they can be economically empowered, which get rid of this old standard that has been set about 200, 300 years ago where women can do anything. Now on to my own argument. Why helping people with worse socioeconomic background is actually achieved through STEM education. This argument has two layers. The first one is less subjective reasoning in STEM education, and the second is sometimes even easier to learn STEM. Now the first, why is less subjective? When you go to our colleges, there are actually a lot of biased things in the selection process. And this specifically plays a huge role in STEM. Now why? Two things. First of all, there's no objective right answer to an essay question. Second thing, there's no objective way to score on an interview. This way, the people in this application process can actually be judged on their own color of the skin, which is something we do not want. Now, what is the comparison? With STEM you have exact answers, so there's actually right or wrong, and therefore these people have a bigger chance of getting in, because the color of the skin doesn't push them away anymore. They're not diminished anymore on the bias of the interviewer, but they are actually getting in because of the qualities of what they can do. The second thing, why it's easier to learn STEM. First of all, non-STEM relies on the background. Two things for this. They rely on vocabulary, something you develop through your family, through your economical status, because it requires long investment, I'll take you in a minute, and daily work to actually develop the right vocabulary to go into an interview with these people of the university. The second is the general knowledge, something you learn about current affairs, and most of the time you learn it at a sophisticated dinner table with your parents where you talk about mostly politics. Why don't you learn it in a low economic society? Well, let me say this to you. These people, first of all, work very long hours and do not always have the time to talk to their children about politics. Second thing is that these people also may, because they are in this low situation, may not like the government. They may not actually want to be coherent with this, and that is why they may have the wrong views on this, and therefore try to get their children on the wrong path. So, you are actually need, for non-STEM education, you need more skills than that are actually taught in school. No matter how much such proposition doesn't want you to believe this is actually true. So what is the comparative? The calculations can actually be taught in class and through books, and therefore these people with worse socioeconomic backgrounds can get into university more easily. What is the impact of this? That there's a better soliciting process at university because there's less bias, and also that people learn these subjects without regardless of circumstances that they are living in. This is why it helps people with worse socioeconomic focus. Now, why are we the right side of the house? Because we are pleading for a 50-50 system, which is actually accomplished because of the increasing focus. Because first it was only humanities, but by this increasing focus, it's starting to go to 50-50 chance, which is having the best of both worlds, and that's why you should vote for our side of the house.
Side opposition today needs to clear their mind, because we have two scenarios, two sides of the house today. Either we have 50-50 on our side, interdisciplinary approach, or we have only the increasement of STEM subjects on their side. Like, we cannot have both or anything otherwise. We are very proud to be proposing the side that says that we regret the increasement of STEM. We think that we need all subjects in our teaching system. We think that is beneficial for innovation and for society. We're going to tell you why we want this debate in our first speech, right? Because we tell you that Elon Musk, when he sends cars into space, we tell you that they say that that's like a consequence of the STEM subject. We tell you that on their side that does not have enough value, that it's a good thing on their side because he wasn't engaged in what society needs. He sent a car into space when there are other problems that need to be solved, right? Because on their side, they don't get a solution, no thank you, to the real problems that also need to be solved. They don't take an acknowledgement into other problems that also need to be solving in our world, right? A few things I'm going to be talking about in my speech. Firstly, I will talk about why we need to learn communication skills and such in our early ages. Secondly, I'll be talking about why our society cannot function without non-STEM subjects. Thirdly, I will be talking about what is the problem, why problems also need non-STEM solutions, and then I will lastly speak about innovation, right? But firstly, let's talk about the skills that we need to learn in our early ages, right? Because on their side, they tell you that that we have like presentations in STEM and that we don't need to develop that many communication skills and such. We tell you that it is not enough and we need to learn communication skills in our early ages, right? Because here's the case, right? Because you cannot, it is very hard to also learn communication skills later on, right? As is learning math hard to learn in your 30s, so is learning communication skills in your 30s. And you will always need communication skills, right? No matter what you study, no matter which subjects you learn in school, no matter what job you do, you will always need your communication skills, you will always need your moral values like Lon talked about, you will always need those skills that you learn when you have a holistic approach on our side, right? We tell you that it's very hard to learn communication skills and such later on, right? And because non-STEM subjects encourage communication skills, right? Because you go to history and that's where your teacher encourages you to talk about different things that happen in history. In your philosophy class, you talked about different moral values. That's when you encourage discourse and people learn their communication skills, not in STEM when someone has one group project, right? We tell you that that does not happen on their side, right? And we cannot tell you which jobs are going to exist in like 10 or so years, but we tell you can always learn skills that non-STEM subjects give you, and we find that very useful, right? No matter where you work. And also we can give you the example of debating. Like it's very hard to learn how to debate like we are right now. Like we all needed a lot of hard work and a lot of time to debate like we're debating now. It doesn't happen overnight, and we tell you that communication skills are also just as hard to learn as like some STEM subjects, right? So we need both STEM and non-STEM skills because they are both important, and that is exactly what you get on our side. Secondly, let's talk about why our society cannot function without non-STEM subjects, right? Because what we tell you is that STEM mostly deals with numbers and graphs. Like we tell you that when people focus too much on that, they lose in very important skills such as communication, like I talked about, communication skills. They lose their like creative thinking, and these are all things that are encouraged by art, by reading literature and by debating, right? They also can lose their sense of morality, and we find that very problematic. Before I go on, sure.
We constantly talk about the Elon Musk example. Do you really think he didn't discuss it with anyone with non-STEM background before he sent a literal car into space?
Well, clearly he did. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so even if we take them at their highest ground, like we tell you that we cannot live in a world where we have an amazing invention, but society completely lost its moral values, right? Because what we value as a society is that people have moral values. We find that very important. We talked about complex moralities in our speeches, no thank you, and we told you that it is not initiative to every person, and that is something that is taught on our side, and that they lose on their side. That is why on their side they have the example of genetically edited babies. We find that unmoral, we find that horrible. We think that on our side, where you get more people that are morally aware, you do not get that, right? We need people that talk about problems in society, who talk about abortion, who talk about gender equality, who talk about wearing burqas. Thirdly, let's talk about problems that need non-STEM solutions, right? Because what they talk about is they talk about things such as diseases, AIDS, global warming, whatever. We tell you that there's so many problems that they just don't mention that need non-STEM solutions, right? Because they only talk about things that need scientific solutions, right? We tell you they forget half of the problems of today's world, right? Because we tell you that we have problems such as people not voting, we have problems such as racism, we have problems such as sexism that still exist, right? And STEM subjects cannot solve that, right? And we need humanitarian solutions for those subjects, for those problems. Therefore, we can only get that if we have non-STEM subjects in our and in our world. That is what you get. So we get actual solutions to scientific subjects, but we also get solutions to problems, like I mentioned just now. Fourthly, let's talk about innovation, right? Because at their best case scenario, we buy their arguments, right? We agree that innovation is very important, right? But we're gonna tell you, and we have told you, why we get better innovation on our side, right? Because on opposition, in the opposition world, STEM teaches you how to think and how to solve a problem, right? And we think that that is great. When we get what on our side, what you get and what you need for true innovation is different ways of thinking. People that learned art in school and learned math in school. People that learned chemistry in school and learned how to analyze literature in school, right? That's when you get the most outside of the box, the most critical thinking, and we find that very important because that is where you get like true innovation, where people that come from different areas of knowledge, people that learn thinking outside the box, with learning all of these things, these are with analyzing, reading literature, and discussing in philosophy. We think these are the people with the most like different minds, and that is where you get true innovation on our side. But secondly, let's talk about immoral innovations, right? Because we tell you that we cannot use these innovations because we find them very immoral, right? So on their side, there are plenty of cases innovations we just cannot use because people don't look into what society needs and to what is wrong in the society. We find that problematic because then we have innovations such as, like we talked about genetically edited babies, such as experiments on black people that they still have on their side, and we find it very immoral, and we can't make use of immoral innovations, right? Because we find that wrong as a society, right? And innovation on their side can help us because a lot of times it is immoral. Therefore, on our side, you get not only better innovation, but you also get innovation that we can actually use and that is actually good for the society, right? So you get so many benefits on our side. You get moral innovations, but you get better innovation, and you don't get like people that are only focused in numbers. You don't get people that are only focused on graphs. You get people that are able to think critically, and you get all these benefits. I beg you to vote on the side of promise.
When the proposition needs to accuse us of approving of tests on black people, as well as you need to rewrite history, that is the moment that you should vote opposition. In my speech, I'm first going to give a general point of rebuttal. I'm just going to discuss two important clashes. First of all, at which side of the house are minorities best off? Second of all, at what side of the house are the best for students in general? But first I would like to discuss the focus. We have explained that years ago you had that everyone did humanities unless you was a big nerd, smart person of the class. They could solve all these difficult mathematical problems. We've explained it's now more acceptable for all sorts of people to choose STEM because they came in contact with it at an early age and know that it's not just for nerds. So we believe that it's clear that at our side of the house we are creating more of a balance, whilst at their side of the house they are trying to get back to the place where humanities are considered far more important. Now on innovation. They have named several examples of how moral innovation will happen at our side of the house, including Elon Musk sending a car into space. We have asked in the POI, don't you think that anyone with a non-STEM background has looked at this and approves of this? They said that they don't think so. We think that if they don't understand that in $1 billion project, they're gonna talk with people with different backgrounds, and we think that researchers are desperate, they are defending their case. No, thank you. We believe that they have not explained why we approve from immoral tests and why there won't be people checking these tests on morality at our side of the house. So we believe it's absurd to assume that we support immoral innovation. Now, in what side of the house is the best equality for minorities? We have explained that there is gender inequality and the STEM subjects can partly solve it. We have explained that women are always discouraged to choose STEM. We have shown with statistics that this focus is helping getting women into STEM. But we explained that besides the fact that it's fundamentally more fair if people can choose every subject they want, no matter what gender they are, we've all explained that because STEM jobs are better paying jobs in general, that is economically empowers women, and thank you, and solves this gender inequality on a larger scale as well, and we believe that that's very important. And, besides that, we've also explained it's a fairer application process for colleges when you choose STEM. For example, that unconscious bias against certain people does not appear because you're no longer talking about something. I'll take you in a minute, but you actually take a test, and there can't be an unconscious bias in a written test. And we've also explained that you need long-term knowledge for subjects like philosophy, and and discussing things today, we've explained why that doesn't happen in people in bad socio-economic positions, and that therefore that the STEM application process is more fair for these persons. But first, POI.
How do you support the idea that in history you don't have a right or wrong answer, as you pointed out? How do you support the idea that at music you cannot objectively tell who is better than the other person, as you stated that the judging system for entering colleges is less objective?
We think that whether or not you like a song is very subjective. I like songs, and my brother is absolutely disgusted by exactly the same songs. There is no objective view of things like art, music, philosophy, etc. If there was, then it would be a very boring world, by the way. But what the thing is that they have said that STEM can't solve these problems. They haven't explained why. Well, we clearly have explained why STEM can solve gender equality, at least partly. They've also said, yeah, there should be a humanitarian solution. They haven't named a single possible solution. Well, we have named several reasons why our house will be solved. We believe that only winning this first clash is already enough for us to win this debate. We believe that there is a great amount of impact at our side of the house. We see that it's a fundamentally unfair system at this moment in which people, based on the characteristics they were born with, are treated as they have less money available. There's an unconscious bias against them. And we believe that if we have proved that we economically empower these people, we create a fairer society for these people, no thank you, and we already have that much impact and we will win this debate no matter what. But now to the second pledge. Now to our second pledge as to what's best for students in general. And they said, yeah, there are important skills exclusive to non-STEM, like complex morality and social criticism. Besides the fact that we've explained that there's no objective view of morality, some believe it's highly immoral to have abortion, others believe it's completely acceptable. We believe that you can't teach morality with a book, and that morality is the result of living in a society and understanding what's going on. And we believe that that comes not from reading a book, but from living in a society, which we all do. And also, yeah, but no, thank you. You talk about history, so you learn communication. Apparently, they think that in the chemistry class we don't talk about chemistry at all. We talk about the subject no matter what class. Communication you learn in every subject, no matter if you talk about chemistry or if you talk about history. There's no reason why communication would be better at their side. POI.
Is that the same as debating?
We think that besides the fact that debating is something that's not it's not a subject, a non-STEM subject, it's rather something people do. Besides, we think that debating happens a lot in all sorts of classes. You think in chemistry class you can debate whether or not an answer is correct, you can bring facts, you can discuss whether or not the test is moral. We think that debating is not necessarily exclusive to non-STEM. Even if it is, we believe that the fact that we create more of a balance means there's no real reason for them to claim that. No, thank you. We've also explained that there's a personnel shortage at all in STEM areas, and that there will be growth in the future. We've explained why. And we believe that we have explained why you're more adaptable thanks to certain skills that are exclusive to STEM. They said, yeah, but there will be jobs where you need less of a STEM, where you need more than a STEM background. They've never explained why. They simply stated this. Besides the fact they said, yeah, but the field of STEM is changing rapidly and you need flexibility. We believe that we have explained why these skills that you learn in STEM are actually good for flexibility, and therefore this falls in our house. We have explained that more tech means there will be more STEM jobs, people who produce the text, who code the stacks, etc. So that our side of the house are better job prospects in today's call as well as in the future. So increasing focus on STEM is not a bad thing, as well as that I've explained that you can more easily start a business when you're STEM, because you don't need a legal advice officer or anything. You just need a computer and some code, for example, if you want to get started on coding things for people. And we haven't really got a sufficient response in that. So if we take the props case at their best, we assume that they've proven that there are no exclusive skills to STEM, but at the same time that we have proven that there are no exclusive skills to non-STEM, and that they also would have proven in some way that there won't be more equality. then still we have one debate because they haven't proven that there's any reason to regret the focus on STEM. They don't just need to prove whether or not STEM or non-STEM is better, they need to prove a specific reason why they regret the focus on STEM and why they regret that there's more equality between the subjects in state school, as we have explained why that equality was never there in the first place. And we believe that therefore, no matter how you look at this case, this debate will always fall at our side, because when they need to think of some utopia with a balance in the history, whilst there's clearly no balance, if they need to disregard gender equality, we solve that with another time, whilst we are literally proposing a way of solving gender equality for part, and if they try to teach morality to people, while we explain that morality is subjective, and then they think there's an objective way of listening to music and art, we believe that there's no other option than voting opposition in this case, and therefore please vote opposition.
It's not enough for side proposition to claim that you're losing morality as soon as you're doing STEM. It's not enough to entirely ignore that we're on our side of the house are helping minorities. It's not enough for side proposition to not prove a single reason that we should be regretting STEM, and it's not enough for them to eventually say that they're winning this debate. In my speech, I will be talking about a few things. First about minorities, then about equality, then about the contradiction in their case, then about innovations, and then about their claims about losing, about morality and how you can't learn that in STEM or even lose that in STEM as they've claimed. First, about minorities. We've brought you two arguments about minorities. First, how you help gender equality even a little bit, and secondly, how STEM can actually help minorities. To the first argument, they've responded, but we've sufficiently rebutted it. To the second argument, they have not responded, and we think that in the end of this debate, we still win because we're helping those minorities. Because we think that those minorities are vulnerable groups, and they're not helping them, and we are, and we think that that's enough for us to win this debate. Then on equality, we've actually proven in this debate that they've stated that the growth of STEM has gone 5 times bigger, but we've proven that that has actually equalized it. We've proven that before, STEM was only for the smartest, only for the best, and only for very specific people, not for minorities, not for women, but for those so-called nerds. We think that because the growth of STEM has gone 5 times bigger, we think that in the end we've proven that we stand for equality, and they have not completed their burden of proving why they are prioritizing humanities over STEM. Well, we've proven that we think that equality is so important because there are so many benefits to STEM. Then, about the contradiction in their case, they've said, in their third speech, they firstly said that you can't learn any communication skills or those skills they claim you only learn in non-STEM subjects. You can't learn them at the age of 30, so therefore you have to learn them at a school age. Then, secondly, they say later that you have a advantage with non-STEM because you can easily learn these skills again. Do you see the contradiction, dear jury? We see that they firstly claim that you can't learn them, and secondly that you can learn them. And we think that we've also sufficiently proven in the end that you can actually also learn these skills outside of schools, and that you need less time to actually learn these skills. And they've also not responded to that. Then about their claim on about innovation, we think that we've proven sufficiently that for most innovations you still need STEM, or mostly need STEM. And secondly, we've also proven that even if you still need the skills you learn in STEM that part of our first argument was about. Then we think that they've also stated that there are also innovations that need to be done on non-STEM side of the house. We think that firstly, that for this you also need a specific study, and we're not discouraging, for example, studying politics. We're not discouraging anyone from solving that, since you need political power for example, implementing a law that everyone needs to vote. Then, secondly, we think that because of the equality, that even if you only needed the skills you learned in high school, that we still also get those skills to those people, and that, thirdly, that we've also sufficiently proven that even for these innovations, you still need the skills you learn in STEM, like problem solving, like logical thinking. Because of this, we think we also win this part of the debate. Then quickly on the problem solving, they stated that, well, yeah, in humanities you can also problem solve, and but we think that we've also sufficiently proven in this debate that because of STEM, you don't see these problems as an obstacle, just as a challenge, and you're more used to actually solving these problems because we on site opposition cause more equality, because we give you the needed skills, because they've not proven their burden. Please vote opposition today.
Let's get through it. They didn't learn about the sexism in physics. They didn't learn about the racism in biology. And they didn't learn about how to express and formulate their opinions in maths. What we have throughout our debate shown you are the important skills and important things an individual learns when this individual is exposed to non-STEM. They have continuously, especially towards the end of the bench, started accusing us of never showing our burden. But we tell you that when we prove to you that the importance of non-STEM subjects, our burden is proven. Because when we tell you that STEM has been outweighing non-STEM subjects, if we prove the quality and the usefulness of STEM, we have shown of non-STEM, we have won this debate. So, what have we shown you throughout this debate? Firstly, what do you get from non-STEM? We've shown you many things, and they've been more or less dismissive of every non-STEM subject. They've been dismissive of the idea that history has rights and wrongs. They've been dismissive of the idea that there are right things and wrong things, right? We tell you that when they come up and say that in philosophy you cannot be wrong, and therefore this is racism, we've told you throughout, this is just dismissive of the whole non-STEM subjects. Right? They have been continuously dismissing of it, while we've shown you the complex moralities that you learn. We've shown you how reading 1984 will help you understand, be more critical of society. We've shown you the importance of this criticism, right? We've shown you all of that. We've shown you how the fact that you learn about racism is things, history, philosophy, and not what they have said, right? And this is what we've shown you throughout this debate. In this debate, we've shown you how this is better, how this betters the individual and rallies him forward. Then the second thing this debate was about is jobs. While they made a small point about how there are a lot of jobs in STEM fields, we've shown you that you cannot possibly prepare people for jobs, STEM or non-STEM. We've shown you how this is quickly the jobs market is quickly changing, and furthermore, the skills you do learn are the skills you learn. The skills you do need to learn are the skills that you learn in non-STEM subjects. Debate and speaking and formulating ideas is not something we learn in mathematics. We stood that from our first speech to our second speech, third speech, and now me. I tell you that they did not learn to express their opinions, and we've not learned to express our opinions in the way we have today at maths. Right? And furthermore, what we tell you is that even other things like adaptivity and the ability to flex, to be able to adapt yourself is exclusive to the idea of having a wide range of knowledge, and they never even tackle that. Furthermore, we've shown you how the third, before that, in their reply speech or third speech, they made a chorus claim of how we claim that you only learn that, how you can that non-STEM subjects are important because you can easily learn them. We never said that. I would just like to point out. But furthermore, what we tell you is we've shown you how non-STEM subjects are not discriminatory, how this is not racist, how there are right and wrong answers, we have history and philosophy and art, and there are objective ways, and we've told you that throughout our bench, throughout our POIs, and we've shown you how this leads to better jobs. So what has this debate shown you? We have shown you how there are a lot of jobs and how this is bad. But if we showed you that non-STEM subjects have important things to teach individuals, if we showed you that it's important to have complex morality, if it's important to have social criticism, and if it's important to have flexibility and communicativeness, we believe that we want this debate. Because the moment when we show you that non-STEM subjects teach people things they need to know, and the moment we show you that, it obviously means we must regret the fact that we have less of that. So I'm proud to stand on the side of opposition, proposition, where we regret the rise of STEM education.